Hey, just finishing this claim to get Dave back on the road.
Nice. I wonder what Dave's doing.
You do your thing. We've got you covered.
All right, good afternoon and welcome to the 269th episode of the Alpha Insurance GHSA Drive for the GHSA State Title. Today at 12:40, we're going to be joined by Sprayberry head coach Brett Vavra, and he has quite a matchup coming up against Kell. They are Cobb County rivals. It's not a region game, but there's a lot of history between the schools, and they will be trying to get just their second all-time win against Kell. It would improve them to 4-0 for the first time since 1989, and the recent matchups have been extremely close. And then the big storyline, which there's a ton of them in this game, is Kamari Nix, Kell's quarterback. He actually quarterbacked in this game last year for Sprayberry and had a really impressive performance on both sides of the ball, and now he's going to be at Kell. He was slated to play primarily safety. That's where he's committed to go to at the next level at Arkansas State. And then once Bryce Clavin took this time off to compete for the USA baseball team, Kamari's had to step in and play quarterback. So talk about an incredible storyline right there, and just a big game for him, obviously, and both programs. But we're going to get started since we've had a little break. I want to talk about our game of the week last week, the Carrollton and Rome one, and dive into how this game developed. So the first half was very interesting, how Carrollton was able to get that 13-0 lead. So neither offense was getting much going. I credit Rome. Their defense did a good job of keeping Julian Lewis in the pocket. And obviously, Julian Lewis can do his thing in the pocket, but they did have some trouble. It did collapse a few times. He was getting hurried, and Rome was able to produce 4 sacks, including some big ones on third down. So, and Joe Wilkinson, number 22 for Kell, that guy is one of the toughest defenders I've seen in recent seasons. He had so many tackles, really set the tone for them, was great in the secondary, made things difficult. So Rome, the first points they gave up, they were punting probably at their own 20-yard line. The punter was like at the 10, low snap, couldn't get it off. And then Carrollton eventually got it in the end zone. But this also came after it looked like Rome was going to score the first points of the game. They had it down at the 1-yard line, but it looked like Reese Fountain at first got into the end zone. He was ruled down. I saw the replay. It looked like he was definitely short. But I feel like the stadium and Rome thought that was a touchdown at first, and then rather than just getting back up to the line and punching it in, it kind of threw off their momentum on that drive, and then Carrollton, credit to them, completely stuffed them. So you have a turnover. They aren't able to score the first points of the game. Defense is trying to keep them in it, and then you have a bad special teams play. Next thing you know, you're down 6-0. So the teams are continuing to battle. No one can get any points going after that first initial touchdown off the turnover. But then Rome is punting again deep in its own territory. Carrollton, I believe, gets a hand on it. The punt goes about 9 yards. And then Carrollton gets down once again in the red zone. They try to run it in with Kamari Farmer, that we'll talk about in a second. Rome is making that difficult, but then Julian Lewis throws it a high ball kind of over the shoulder near the boundaries to Caleb Odom, who just makes an unbelievable play, perfectly placed ball a one-on-one situation, and that is 13-0 at the half. Rome was trying to get some points before the break, but they couldn't. And so Carrollton was going to get the ball first to start the second half. But here's how the stats looked in the first half, because it's very interesting. You can't just look at the end of the game. You have to see how Carrollton really had the better game plan. They didn't have any miscues, and they were able to just stay out in front and then really pull away at the end. But Kamari Farmer in the first half, 14 carries, 108 yards, 0 touchdowns, but then he did have the one touchdown receiving to get him on the board. I believe that was maybe an 8-yarder, and then the Caleb Odom touchdown, that was a 6-yarder, I believe. So the 2 short touchdown passes, there were 2 for 2 in their red zone chances. Rome was 0 for 2. The other big news in this one, and it's something that might impact Rome moving forward, definitely something to watch this week, is Chance Arthur. He's their junior running back who, against when Rome played Cass in the opener, very dominant performance by them. I think it was 34-0 shutout victory. Rome was kind of in that 2-score lead position, and we were wondering, when's Rome going to have that knockout punch? Chance Arthur was the knockout punch for them, just tough yards running the ball. He's a junior, but he has tons of experience. So he's in there in the first half, takes a nice carry up the middle, and I think maybe it's just like a bone contusion, because he was able to kind of limp off the field. He was definitely in a lot of pain, but it looked like the helmet, someone went low to tackle him on a handoff right up the middle and took his leg out, and he definitely did not return to the game. We'll see how serious that injury is, but he was 5 carries for 12 yards. You had Jarvius McDermott, 5 for 21, and then a couple negative plays. So in the first half, Rome had 18 carries for 18 yards and lost one of their top running backs. So they weren't going to be able to run it in the second half. So that gave Carrollton, once they really shut down Rome's rushing attack, that was the key to the game. Both coaches said it in the pregame interviews. They said, we're going to have to be able to run the ball. Carrollton achieved that. Rome didn't. And when you win that battle and you have Julian Lewis at quarterback, you're going to win the game. And so great first half for Kamari Farmer. I couldn't have been more impressed. That Rome defense is the real deal. And you've got a sophomore coming in there taking 14 carries for more than 100 yards and really putting them in front. And I think he was a well-deserved MVP after the game. All right, so the second half, Carrollton gets the ball. Rome obviously needed a turnover, but they weren't able to get it. Hold up one sec. This says Caleb Odom. Okay, this is completely wrong. He would have had 3 touchdowns. Wait, okay, so to start, okay, here we go. To start the second half, Kamari Farmer caught a 5-yard touchdown pass from Julian Lewis. That was their opening drive. Took less than a minute, so great execution by the offense coming out. And another thing that happened in this game, Carrollton had great field position on special teams every time. Rome could not get anything going in the return game. Their average starting field position was like the 15-yard line. Carrollton looked phenomenal on special teams. So they get the kickoff to start the second half, march right down the field, more Kamari Farmer. So then Rome has an answer finally. They get on the board. DK Daniel, 41-yard touchdown reception from Reese Fountain. That makes it 19-6, eventually heading into the fourth quarter. And then Rome's trying to come back. They just can't get it done on third down, though. They were 5 of 16 in the game. They ended up being 1 of 4 in their red zone opportunities. And then the big play came early in the fourth quarter. Cameron McClure had a 42-yard interception return. And so that was tough for them. And then I believe right after Rome did get on the board, there was a Carrollton play because they did a short kick because they weren't handling the special teams well. It looked like the Carrollton guy fumbled. He did not. So there were a lot of frustrating plays like that where Rome was waiting for something to bounce their way, and it just never did. So that pick six makes it 26-6. Reese Fountain eventually scored on a 4-yard run with 7:25 left. That made it 26-13. And then Julian Lewis iced the game with a 32-yard touchdown pass to Caleb Odom, one of the most athletic plays I've ever seen. You just see why he is one of the top playmakers in the state in terms of catching the ball. I mean, tied in at the next level, but he is amazing. His balance, his size at 6'6", 220, his agility, how he didn't fall down on that play and then just battled his way into the end zone. Every time Caleb touched the ball, he did something spectacular. So Julian finishes the game 17-24, 179 yards, 4 touchdowns. Mentioned he was sacked 4 times, 0 interceptions. Very impressive, mature performance by Julian just to execute the game plan just so well. And then Kamari Farmer, 30 carries, 198 yards, and then the 2 touchdown receptions. So I think with Carrollton's schedule, they aren't going to have to hand the ball off to Kamari 30 times. That's certainly not going to be sustainable because you have Bryce Hicks, who was on the sidelines. He was actually in a wheelchair and a cast. So I don't know the details on how serious that injury was. It appeared to be pretty serious. Not sure if he's going to be able to come back. And so without 2 backs in the backfield and just Kamari, no one else in terms of rushing, you had Zakai Helton, 4 carries for 4 yards. It was all Kamari. So I expect Julian's numbers to just be insane in the upcoming weeks as they just try to get through this region schedule. They'll have some big matchups for sure, but I think this was a game they knew they were going to have to run the ball. They did exactly that. Kamari completely proved himself, and we'll see what happens moving forward. The big news for Rome, though, Chance Arthur, what is his status going to be moving forward? They certainly are going to need him in that backfield. All right, so some other notable results from this past week. Speaking of running the ball, how about Gavin Hall and Gainesville? We knew that was one of the most significant moves we saw this offseason, and his role this season so far has been just so monumental for him. They lost Naeem Cheeks. They returned, obviously, Baxter Wright at quarterback, some other top targets, but it looks like he's given them just a really exciting dynamic in terms of a run game. And then he's doing a lot more as well. He had 6 catches for 95 yards. He is looking like Christian McCaffrey out there. He's tough. He's one of the stronger guys on the team. And his season so far, got the numbers here. Through 3 games, 203 rushing yards first week, 170 the second, 180 the third. And obviously the big plays in the passing game as well. So he's having all-state performances every single week. So that is just exciting news for him, exciting news for the Red Elephants. And then I have the composite rankings because I believe Gainesville just took over number 1. Let's see. Okay, so it looks like they definitely receive. All right, so Gainesville's number 1 in the GPB and 680, and they would be number one overall, but the Max Preps rankings have them at number 6 in 6A, which that's a little crazy. And then that's the Maxwell. The Max Preps has them at number 4. We've got them at 3. And then, so Hughes is still number 1 over there. You got a tie for 4th behind Roswell between Houston County and Thomas County Central. That's very interesting. And then, what's crazy is Douglas County. I mean, they're receiving a lot more votes now. So this week, score, we had them at number 9. 680 ranked them for the first time, and the Maxwell rankings in addition to Max Prep. So 4 out of the 6 have Douglas County, and that's a result of their 31-0 win over McEachern, where they scored all that in the first half. Knocking on the door in 6A, you got BT, Brunswick, Northside, Warner Robins, and Creekview in 7A. The polls shifted a little bit. Carrollton, despite the big 33-13 win over Rome, they did not move up in the poll at all, but it did shift a little bit. Mill Creek has taken over number 2. That is a result of me not weighing them down. I had them at number 7 last week. That hurt them in the overall composite. I bumped them up because Cam Robinson was so dominant early on, but then it looks like this past week against Archer, they're starting to really balance out that offense. Shane was making throws. Those playmakers at the receiver position have started to step up. So I think they're feeling really good offensively, and they're starting to hit that rhythm that we saw last year where they were just unstoppable, just picking and choosing what they were able to do. So Mill Creek jumped to number 2 in the composite this week. Sorry once again for having them at 7. Buford is still number 1. The Maxwell actually joined Score Atlanta and has them at number 2. Everyone else has them at number 1. Mill Creek is in a tie Walton is in a tie at number 3 for Colquitt, and then Carrollton, as I said, is number 5. Did not move up after that Rome win. You have Westlake jumping up to number 6 after a nice win over Cedar Grove, a 3-0 start. You got Parkview at 7, Milton's at number 8, and then Grayson, a dangerous number 9. They've looked lights out after that season opening loss. And then you got Newton, North Cobb, Lowndes, and then Peachtree Ridge all knocking on the door. We had Peachtree Ridge in that poll for the first time, so they got a vote. And then Lowndes got 1 vote from 680, North Cobb 1 from Max Preps. So that was pretty exciting week in 7A, but I mean, there were some buys. I think this week with our feature game between Milton and Roswell, that is just going to show us so much about, I mean, we know Buford, we know what Walton's done. We want to see Milton against a great rival that we know is ranked very high. We know every single time those teams square off, it's a great game. So I think whoever wins that game on Friday, they're going to establish that they are completely the real deal. And it will be very exciting. We'll try to talk to the coaches in the coming days. But let's go ahead. We'll take a quick break. I'm going to reset on the other side, talk about some of these matchups this week.
What you doing?
Hey, just finishing this claim to get Dave back on the road.
Nice. I wonder what Dave's doing.
You do your thing. We've got you covered.
All right, welcome back. So let's look at some of these other top results. Shout out to North Atlanta, off to another great start. 41-7 win in their latest one over New Manchester. they're going to have a game coming up with Wheeler, who also is looking very strong. And that's all credit to their running back, who has just been outstanding this year. He had a breakout, I believe, sophomore season last year, and he has definitely been doing his thing again. So I want to look a little bit at Grayson, though, and their response after the Walton game. You have an 83-0 win over Eagles Landing, and then a 41-0 win over Fort Dorchester. Gosh, that's a lot of math right there. But yeah, 124-0 in the last 2 weeks. That is crazy. And so I have the numbers right here from, hold up. Here we go. Grayson quarterback Jeff Davis in the latest one. 20 of 27 passing, 296 yards and 4 touchdowns, and also had 2 rushing touchdowns. So they're doing their thing. Now, I was confident in Walton that first game out the gates. You just have a new coaching staff at Grayson, where Walton, they knew exactly what they wanted to do every single play. I think if they ended up playing again in the playoffs, it would be a heck of a game, and it would be very exciting. I don't think that talent-wise, Grayson is lacking in any category. I think they are legit, and I mean, that's just the perfect response. They are making everyone forget about that week 1 result, and when they have some big games coming up, I'm looking forward to obviously the big Brookwood one. The Parkview game is going to be great, but I just expect them, I mean, they might respond to that one and just win the rest of the way in the regular season and earn that home field. So one sec, let's look at 5A real quick. So I heard last week about Judd Anderson transferring to Warner Robins. So Warner Robins last year obviously made it to the finals. Once again, ended up falling short to Ware County, who was playing just so good late in the season. They had been wanting to win one for, I think it might have been a couple decades. And they just came out inspired and won that game. Well, Coach Westbrook leaves. No more Vic Burley. I'm like, okay, how good is this Warner Robins team going to be? Well, Najee was like, hey, look at the roster. I looked at it, and I was like, okay, they have exactly what you'd expect for them to make another run at the title. So much talent. Their skill players are just insane this year. I think they're even better passing the ball. And then you have Judd Anderson come in week 3. They're playing their biggest rival, Northside Warner Robins. He comes in the second quarter and then leads them to a comeback. Talk about just the hype around that program going insane. I mean, they went from being a state championship contender to now they have a new quarterback that's going to be leading them, that just came over and helped you beat your biggest rival. I mean, that is insane. And, you know, I don't know all the details. Obviously, people are asking, like, that's a little strange to transfer in the middle of the season. Obviously, there's steps they had to take to make that happen. I don't know if it was something that was yeah, like, I think the big question is this something that was considered before the season, or?
So basically, they had a 2-quarterback system at Jones County where he was at. So basically, I think he wanted to be the guy. You know, he's 3 stars committed to Miami.
Yep.
So Warner Robins gave him the opportunity to come in, go and start your senior year.
I saw that as well. So they're saying that I've seen people straight up like blame it on the coach, like, because it was a 2-quarterback system. He wanted to be the guy, and then I mean, he literally won Offensive Player of the Week, week 2. Had a great game, and then I guess still was going to have to share the duties and did not want to, because he's thinking at Miami, if he's going to compete for a starting job, he's going to need to play the whole game. He's going to need to get ready. And so I guess that was the impetus to motivate that move. And then they're obviously close. They're in the same classification. So very, very interesting. But we do have a story up there on Score ETL just talking about it. It will be a huge headline. I don't think people even realized it happened until after the game. You had Jones County playing a big Perry game. It hadn't really come out yet, so there might have been some people that were just like, oh, I can't wait. Northside's playing Warner Robins this week. I want to come out. And then they show up and they're like, wait, who's that? Who's that at quarterback? Oh, that's the Miami commit. So really just a exciting development that's going to shake up 5A for sure. And then I find it also interesting, not saying there's a conspiracy, but who was the last time you remember seeing where there was that quarterback that transferred in the middle of the year? And that was Jake Garcia. When he went from Valdosta to Grayson, he was also committed to Miami, and they won the state title. So will another Miami commit transfer mid-season right around the same time and lead his team to a state title? We will see, but that certainly would be an interesting parallel right there. And then elsewhere in 5A, obviously Ware County has looked fantastic. They beat a good Baldwin team. Baldwin's the team that really made headlines out the gates by beating Peach County week 1, and they were undefeated until that game. And then I'm interested to see some of these region battles. Region 1's going to be great with, as we mentioned, the Warner Robins. You got the Cass, Carrollton, and then I put Dalton in the polls this week. I want to pull them up real quick because I think that is a team people are certainly sleeping on. And then you also have Creekside. No one should count them out for losing to Mater Day. I don't think we've seen anything like that. It reminds me of like last season, Parkview played IMG Academy in baseball, and I was like, okay, Parkview, that's like the best team in Georgia. This will be a good game. That game was 18-0 in the 3rd inning. IMG was just on a different level. I mean, I feel the same is probably true with Mater Day. It's the #1 team in the country, and it's a good opportunity. I credit them for going out there and making that trip, and I'm sure it wasn't all just a frustrating result, but yeah. And this comes a week after they beat St. Peter's Prep on a Saturday. So I mean, Creekside's off to a great start as well. I would not put too much weight into that. But back to Dalton. They beat North Murray week 1, 35-14. They beat Sonoraville, who was knocking on the door of the 3A rankings, 50-14. And now this week they play a really talented Rockmart team, an opportunity to go 3-0. And then who does Dalton have after that? They've got Lassiter. I expect them to dominate that one. They got a big rivalry game against Cedartown, and then it's straight into the region. Hiram, Woodland, Cass, Calhoun, and Cartersville in the season finale. Definitely do not count Dalton out when you're looking at that region. All right, do we have Coach Vavra? Not yet? Okay. So let's look at Sprayberry's start real quick. They've had close outings pretty much every game so far this season. So 31-30 win over Campbell. I think that might have been an overtime win. I'm not sure exactly, but Campbell's off to a great start as well. We saw them have the big win over Kennesaw Mountain this past week. It looked like they beat Meadow Creek 32-0. So shout out to Coach Phillips. He came over from North Springs. I think they're running like either a wishbone, wing tee. They beat Kennesaw Mountain without completing a single pass, and they're just doing their thing. And 32-0, that's insane. They won one game last year. They're 2-1, and their only loss was that 1-pointer to Sprayberry. So yeah, Campbell, definitely don't sleep on them. Their next game is going to be another good one. It'll be this week, I think, on tomorrow night. They're playing Miller Grove. Campbell and Miller Grove. Miller Grove's coming off that win over Douglas last Thursday. Definitely will be following that one tomorrow night. All right, so then after that, Sprayberry beat Paulding County 37-14. And then this past week, River Ridge 38-33. So they are, as we mentioned, 3-0. They're now trying to become 4-0 for the first time since 1989, and this is their final non-region game. They'll be on a bye week after that, and then they have to open at home against BT. Then they got Alpharetta, Johns Creek, Roswell, Lassiter, and Pope. So they did make the playoffs out of that region last year, which is a very talented region. Once again, BT, Alpharetta, Roswell, Pope is looking way better this year. And then you have Johns Creek and Lassiter. So they earned the number 4 seed last year. They had a very young team, just a handful of seniors, and they're once again relying on that youth. Let's pull up the River Ridge game real quick. Did you see him yet?
No, sir.
Okay. Well, I'm going to highlight the River Ridge. I have to pull up the stats though from the Collins Hill Brookwood game. I picked Collins Hill to beat Brookwood. I was sitting with some of their coaches during the Brookwood McEachern game. They told me straight up, we're going to shut them down. They aren't going to be able to move on us. In that game, Brookwood passing the ball, 2 of 4, 2 yards, 1 interception. Rushing the ball, 24 carries, 65 yards. Complete shutdown defensive performance. Collins Hill was coming off their bye. They lost to Milton week 1. They had a bunch of turnovers in that game. Wasn't their finest performance. That showed me exactly what I needed to see. And then offensively, they were balanced. They had TJ Wilcox, the junior, 151 yards to the air, and then they rushed for 207 yards. Do not count Collins Hill out this week, and they'll be playing, I believe, Cedar Grove this week. Coach Hip. All right. Hey, Coach, how's it going?
Going great. How are you, Craig?
Doing well. Thank you so much for coming on. So you had the Labor Day. I mean, did that impact the schedule at all in terms of the
I mean,
game
just
prep?
a little bit of adjustment in schedule, but doesn't really make too much of a difference. We went in the morning. We had team meeting, offensive and defensive meetings, special teams meetings in the morning, and then practiced early afternoon. So it was a good day for us.
And then I mentioned you guys have played some close football games. You guys have had to finish like 4-quarter battles. You guys have found ways to come through. I know you guys had a ton of close games last year too. So what was something that you stressed to them throughout this offseason, just being able to finish in close games?
Yeah, we got a really young football team, and I think some of the guys that were a part of last year's team got that experience of playing in a number of close games. I mean, I think games 2, 3, and 4, we lost by a total of 9 points last season. So to take those experiences and to learn from them, I think that helped. I think we're probably in a little bit better shape. We were better conditioned. But yeah, it means a lot to be able to find a way to win, especially with a young football team as young as we are. Um, I like the fight in our team. They don't quit. Um, and very very fortunate to find a way to make one more play than River Ridge on Friday, and then 3 weeks ago against Campbell in overtime. So proud of my
Yep,
guys.
exactly. So last year, and first of all, I mean, Campbell, they look good this year for sure. I mean, they've had some big wins already. They're great at running the ball. They've been playing great. But yeah, as you mentioned last year, tough 21-20 loss to Paulding County, tough 45-42 loss to River Ridge. Now you look at this season, you guys have won those close games. You got the overtime win over Campbell. You're sitting at 3-0, and I know this Kell game means a lot just with the rivalry and just Kell being a team that you guys have wanted to kind of use to measure the success of the Sprayberry program. So how confident are you just heading into this matchup?
Yeah, I mean, look, we feel good about it. We know what Kell's going to bring to the table. They're very very athletic. They're well coached. Um, they're aggressive on defense. They have a familiar quarterback, a guy that used to play in our program that we know very well. Um, and they're going to do a good job of getting the ball out in space and their fast screens, and then pushing the ball vertically down the field. So we're going to have to do a good job of staying on top of routes, and then being aggressive on the fast screens and coming up and being able to make a tackle in space. And then we're going to have to be balanced on offense. Be able to run the ball with more success than we did last week. Even though our numbers weren't bad, I think we rushed for 179 yards, but a lot of those were on scrambles from Jaden Duckett, and so that's going to be the challenge this week. We had even though we won last week in a close ball game, we did not play very well, particularly. So there was a lot to get cleaned up, and Kell presents some challenges just with the matchups that they present. So, looking forward to the opportunity, though, and for us, it's just the next game on the schedule and the next stepping stone to improving our football team every week, so that we are ready for region play.
Yep, and you mentioned Kamari. He was your quarterback last year. I think he led you guys in passing, rushing. He's over there at Kell now. Originally wasn't, I guess, supposed to be the quarterback. They got a situation now where he's heading back in there. So, yeah, it's not just familiarity from the coaching staff. It's also the players. So we know that's going to be a big just what he can do athletically. But talk a little bit more about your sophomore quarterback, Duckett. His performance last week, I know wasn't ideal to have him scrambling around like that, but I mean, without some of those plays, without his, I think he had 4 rushing touchdowns. It's like you guys might not come out with that victory. So was it just grittiness, toughness, and just what did you see from him last week?
Yeah, yeah. Jaden's a sophomore, so he's got a ton of room to develop. But he's got a real knack. First of all, he's incredibly athletic, but he's got a real knack for seeing the field and seeing space and feeling defenders, um, kind of in his peripheral, and being able to make cuts, and cut back against the grain against the field, and just he finds that space. He's got a real knack for it. He feels pressure sometimes a little too quick, and so we're trying to get him to settle in and trust the offensive line and its protection a little bit more. But he throws the football well. But that's, like I said, he's only a sophomore and he's still developing. So there's so much room for growth for Jaden. And but he's a special athlete. I mean, he did some things with the football on Friday night that I've never seen anybody do. So yeah, he's a big reason we were able to get that W last week. And I'm looking forward to coaching him the rest of the season, and developing him for the next couple of years.
Exactly. And so he's a sophomore. You've mentioned the youth. So, I mean, how many sophomores and juniors do you expect to be kind of starting and playing a big role this week?
Yeah, I don't have that number on the top of my head, but right now we have 9 seniors. Um, 7 or 8 of them start. One of them's our kicker, so I think 4 on defense and 3 on offense. And I think I counted like 65 players on our roster are from the junior and sophomore class. So definitely have a lot of youth on our football team. And so look, it's great to be able to find ways to win these first 3 games with all that youth. So I think future looks bright for sure. But we'll see if we can't you know do something special this year.
Yeah, and one of the seniors, Jason Pitts, Jr. Talk about him just being a guy that's bought in for you guys, one of your tougher players. Just what he brings to that backfield.
Yeah. Jason's an absolute stud. He's not real huge, but he plays very, very aggressively. He's very quick. He's very decisive. He's physical, especially for his size. But he's done a great job for us. He was a back that last year kind of split some time with one of the other running backs, so probably didn't get as many touches as he needed to. But so far this season, he's got over I think 500 yards of total offense. Great back out of the backfield, got good hands. Very tough runner, but like I said, very quick and decisive, and it gets downhill. Reminds me of a kind of an old school tailback, but he's done a great job for us this year so far.
Yep, he averaged about 55, 60 yards a game last year. He's near 100 this year just in the rushing department. Where would you say the team speed's at overall, just offensively this season, just compared to some of the other years you've been there?
Yeah. We've got some pretty good. We've got some really good athletes on the outsides, and our kids run well. Our team speed is definitely improved. You look at guys like Jaden Duckett, like Jason Pitts, like Mark Manfred, like Derai Carter, plays in the slot, but Mark Manfred plays on the outside. He's also a corner for us. Demetrius Brown, kind of in the backup role at tailback, but also plays the outside linebacker Viper position for us on defense. Um, yeah, I mean, I like where we're at in terms of our overall team speed and athleticism. Um, I have to get a little bit stronger in the weight room, and that's only going to help improve that as well.
And I think one of the other additions this year for you guys was it Ben McClain coming in to handle the offensive coordinator duties for you.
Yes, sir, that's correct. Yeah, Ben came in a week before summer practice started, so we had a lot of changes, a lot of new faces on staff, including him. But he's done a really good job so far. Ben came over from Brookwood, where he was coaching the linebackers, but was on that 2010 state championship team. Played quarterback there. Played quarterback at Georgia State University, and was a GA there, O-line GA coach. So he's got a lot of experience, a lot of knowledge, and like I said, he's doing a great job for us so far.
Yep, Brookwood's all-time leading passer. You mentioned his college experience. I think his dad also played in college and is coaching over there. So a nice addition to that coaching staff, kind of coming in and getting right to it, as you said, in the summer. Let's go to the defensive side, though. I mean, what have you seen so far just in terms of eliminating big plays, just coming up clutch down the stretch, and then the fact that you have played teams early on that have been really run-oriented?
Yeah, I mean, look, Campbell. I think we did a good job against Campbell of stopping the run early in the game, but they made some adjustments at halftime and were able to move the ball. We had a difficult time tackling their back. I think he's like a 240-pound back, and we're not real huge on defense. Really, overall, we got good athleticism, but size and strength we probably need to. That's something we're working on. But yeah, we've done a good job of not giving up big plays at times, and we've also made some big plays ourselves. I mean, I think the last 2 ball games we've scored on defense. We've picked 6 Baldwin County. We picked 6 River Ridge on Friday night. And we're also able to create some other turnovers that got us deep in their opponent's territory that led to scores for our offense. So, been very pleased with our defense. We gave up a few big plays late against River Ridge. Had a tough time tackling their receiver. I think number 10. I don't know his name, but he's a good ball player. But yeah, I'm pleased. Our kids play aggressive. We've got a number of kids that have started for 2 seasons that are got some good playing time as freshmen. Everett Curry there in the middle, I think, leads the county in tackles. He's got 51 tackles in 3 games. Part of that was because I think Gamble ran the ball 59 times out of their 70 plays or something crazy like that. He had 23 tackles that game. He had, another close to 20 the next game. And so he's been very, very productive at that buck linebacker position. And then the experience on the back end, Roman Spink at safety, Mark Manfred playing corner, and then, Jaden Russell playing the other safety position, and then Jordan Edmonds, another long corner at 6'3". So we got some length in the secondary, and they've done a good job of not giving up big passing plays. And then we've been pretty stout against the run so far. So proud of where our defense is. Always room for improvement, but definitely excited about where we're at.
Yeah, it looks like with the exception of that, I think the River Ridge game, you said there was that one big play, like a 75-yarder. It looks like these teams have tried to run the ball, and then that's probably tested your secondary. You mentioned your linebackers racking up all those tackles, but what have you seen just from the physicality and the overall tackling of your defense? Some of these more difficult open field situations.
Yeah, look, we've got to keep working to get better at our open field tackling. I mean, that's especially early in the year. It's usually ugly for everyone. That's been the case for us at times. But yeah, the physicality, our aggressiveness and our physicality, and we got guys that love to run around and hit, and that love to play the game the right way, which is with physicality. And so I've been happy with that. And then on the back end, last year we were so man oriented. We were exclusively man for the most part. And this year we've been able to give some zone coverage looks, kind of give some different looks to offenses, and then also be able to play man and press man and off man. And so from that aspect, I love where our defense is at. That's been very helpful, and probably why we haven't given up too many or any big passing plays vertically down the field.
And then just what are your final thoughts just on this particular matchup? Just what it would mean, just the last non-region game. Obviously, you guys have a ton of tough opponents in that region schedule, but just in terms of a great opportunity for you guys to go up against another Cobb rival and just try to get this win.
Yeah, I mean, look, anytime you beat a rival, crosstown rival like Kell, it's good, and that's something since I've been here this is my 7th season now. We have not been able to do. We've had a number of close games and just hadn't found a way to win. So going into region play 4-0 would be really, really special. But it's not going to be easy. We know that they're a good football team. Like I said, they're very athletic. They're well coached. They've been battle tested too a little bit. So I'm just looking forward to the opportunity and coaching our kids and watching our kids play on Friday. We're excited about it.
And then I always like to ask just how is the JV kind of freshman teams looked so far? You guys have a lot of young players now, but just in terms of stacking up and kind of the pipeline down the future.
Yeah, I mean, it's been good. To your point, we've had even some freshmen playing up on varsity and a number of sophomores. So we have a JV team this year, some varsity team. We've played 2 games. We lost a really close ball game to Pope in the first week of JV play. And we had a 20-point lead on Alpharetta last Thursday and ended up letting that one get away from us and lost by 4 points, 26-22, the last minute of the game. So kind of heartbreaking for those kids, but, lots of lessons to be learned. And lots of growth to be made, and I think so. The future does look bright. There's a lot of good young players on those teams, and so I think looking forward to the future of Sprayberry football.
Certainly. Well, you guys are doing a great job. We cannot wait for this matchup. Thank you so much for coming on, Coach, and good luck this Friday.
Yeah, appreciate it, Craig. I'll have a great day.
Awesome. All right, so there he goes. And then he was talking about Everett Curry. Sure enough, 23 tackles in that opening win over Campbell. And he said about 55 through 3 games. That is a lot. And he's only a junior. He plays lacrosse for them as well. And some of the other leading tacklers he mentioned looked like Roman Spink. He's in that secondary. He had 15 tackles in the Campbell game. You also have Demetrius Brown, the senior. He had 10 tackles. So they have certainly been getting after it. And as we mentioned, they've played run-oriented teams. Campbell apparently had a 240-pound back. That's not fun to tackle for an entire game, but they did that. So even when they haven't had the size advantage in some of these matchups, they played physical. I think the key just with this Kell offense is they do have balance, and then you're going to have to try to expose some weaknesses on the offensive line, be aggressive, and try to throw off the timing. We have seen Kell in some of the games struggle, but that was also against a Parkview defensive front in the first week that is outstanding, and it was the first week of the season. So I don't know if that's really a fair judgment on how Kell's offensive line looks, but definitely they'll have to get pressure. They're going to have to force him into 3rd and longs, and we'll definitely talk more about this individual matchup moving forward. But thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today. We'll be back tomorrow with Keeping It Real with Najee Wilkins. We got content up on scoreatl.com right now. We'll have our top matchups to look for this week, and don't forget Roswell versus Milton this Friday. So thanks, everyone, and we'll see you soon.
What you doing?
Hey, just finishing this claim to get Dave back on the road.
Nice. I wonder what Dave's doing.
You do your thing. We've got you covered.